activity because connecting to people on LinkedIn is so important. So hoping that some of you can make some important connections. And before we move on, a couple big things I want to mention that I thought about retroactively that I should have. Number one, when it comes to these personalized requests, there's actually a 300 character limit, so be cognizant of that. And the other big thing I want to mention is when you are, I know when I was walking around, sometimes people were having difficulty thinking of like maybe who to connect to or who should I start out connecting to on LinkedIn. And one big thing is, I mean, you have friends, family, and faculty here at State maybe that you've grown close to, or maybe that you've gotten to know. And that's a good way to start off making connections on LinkedIn because you can only branch from there. But I always recommend that's a great place to start. And so now we're going to move on forward, and I'm going to let Logan take it away.
Fine, I get to talk. Anyways, the third stuff that we wanted to cover on LinkedIn today was the aspect of maintenance for your LinkedIn. Because going into this launch, this is for people, like I was saying earlier to the group over here, was that the difference between this launch and other LinkedIn launches is that this is kind of for people that already have a little bit of their feet in the water for LinkedIn, and they want to like use it to a higher level. And that's where, in my mind, the maintenance piece fits in. Setting apart regular time to update your LinkedIn, make sure that all the information that you have on it is current and accurate is important. I know that coming into this semester, I didn't do that over the summer, and there was a week or two that I still said I was a junior, which, you know, thank God I'm not. Move right along. But it's also really important to, keeping your information current and accurate is to establish your brand throughout the whole process. And that's something I want to ask you guys. When you hear that, like your own personal brand, what does that mean to you? Anybody? I don't bite. Could be a part of it is your skills. Anything else to being like what employers would see as your brand?
We have candy for any willing volunteers, as long as you're not allergic to peanut butter or peanuts in general.
Or mints.
How you present yourself.
That's good. Anything else? Those are two really good answers.
Would you prefer mint or?
Yes.
Yes? Yeah, that's a good one too. I'm glad that you touched on that. But I would say those three things are really good for what your brand is. What your brand is essentially like what you convey throughout your profile to anyone looking into, whether it be your interest in hobbies, your professional experiences, your education. All the little aspects of who you are really important to keep in mind as you maintain your resume, LinkedIn. This slip of tongue was for a bit of a reason there is that one thing I like to think about when adding content to a LinkedIn is that it's good to think of your LinkedIn as a resume without the one-page limit, so you can give a lot more detail about your experiences and add more insight for an employer to see that you wouldn't be able to put on one piece of paper. Is that a question?
Oh, yeah, I was wondering if it's
sure.
possible. Oh, am I allowed to ask?
Oh, no, please.
Okay.
Let me
Is it possible to add like past working experiences? I've seen
Absolutely.
like it asks for like where you're currently working.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure how to add. Like,
You can just add work experience like when you're setting it up.
Okay.
Because
Mhm.
I've set mine up recently, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
But besides just the overall kind of like adding and maintaining information on your page, in my mind the maintenance of your LinkedIn is more than just making sure that it's all shiny and fresh. I think maintaining is also making sure that the network that you've established through making connections on LinkedIn stays strong and nurtured. And the ways that you can do that are by making sure that you've made connections and have conversations with the people that you connect to. One way that you can do that, if you're connected with people that put up articles and share things, is to comment on them, to like them, kind of like you would on Facebook, just to show that you're interactive with their pages, show that you have a level of engagement and interest in what they're putting out there. Also, from explaining what Neil and Nelson were saying, is that once you connect to people and make a formal request to them, and have a bit of a conversation with them, a good thing to do is to move into a face-to-face engagement of some sort or an informational interview. If they're in the area in Raleigh, which a good number of your connections will likely be, it'll be a fairly easy matter to just be like, hey, meet for lunch, come to Tally. If it's a professor, even easier after class. But if they're away, it might be more of like FaceTime or something like that. And setting up an informational interview, what an informational interview is, it's an interview that doesn't have to do with a job offer or a position. What it is essentially that you ask a professional more about themselves, what do they do, what's their field like. And throughout the course of this, it's important to take this opportunity to really get as much information as you can from the professional, but also impress them with your skills to be professional as well, or to flip the interview by asking them really good, insightful questions. Have any of you ever had an informational interview before, or anything that sounds like what I described? Okay. Well, say if you did, what would be some questions that you would want to ask a professional in your field of interest about?
What do your day-to-day activities look like when you first step into the office? How do you start your day? And what would it look like from the start to the moment in the week?
Okay. So what you said was the day-to-day activities a professional has from the start of the day to the end, which is a really good question. And like, the day in the life is always a good one to ask. Anybody else have any?
Neil actually had an informational interview a while ago. If he doesn't mind sharing exactly all about that.
Yeah, and I can tell you a little more about that. So recently, something that I'm thinking about doing post-graduation is something called the College Advising Corps. And recently, great guy in the back, Alex, shout out, has a friend who is in his grad program who actually went through the College Advising Corps, and he allowed me to connect with her on LinkedIn. And so from there, I was able to talk to her and set up a time for me to have an informational interview, so I could learn more about what that looks like and more about the program itself. So I met with her and I asked her questions just like what was mentioned over here. What did a day-to-day look like for you? Especially because this position required them to like move. I was like, how are living arrangements? How like logistical questions sometimes. So like, how are living arrangements? How much did you get paid for this? As far as when it comes to transitioning to grad school, how useful, so this program actually gives aid after the fact towards grad school if you're there for a certain amount of time. So I also asked like, how useful was that aid, or how much aid did you get towards your grad school program? Because I do eventually plan to go to grad school. So just important questions to ask. Definitely.
Also, oh, yes?
Oh, I guess you can ask about like at an organization, professional development, and then like opportunities for promotions. Because like a job is nice, but you kind of want more like things to do.
Oh, absolutely. Opportunities are a great thing to ask, really, whenever you talk to a professional, because it helps them draw into their own experiences. Saying that I have when I was growing up, the topic that everybody knows the best is themselves, and it's one they're also probably the best to share on, is that making sure that you really ask professionals about like how they came up, what kind of things that they had. One thing that I know I like to ask in a sentence like that. It's a good question, so good answer.
It's okay.
Sorry.
I'm not going to do that today. Is that how do you define success in what you do? Is that it's a question that helps the employer take a moment to think. It's not something that they've probably been asked too much, and it also is something personal to them that throughout their own experiences the answer has probably been changed from how they've started. But, continuing on that, going back a little more to the more page maintenance part of it, we have an activity. Oh. We do. Heavy hands. We have an activity for you guys related to artifacts. Now, if you've not heard of an artifact on LinkedIn before, what it is something like I was touching on earlier with the way that LinkedIn allows you to expand on things you wouldn't be able to put on your resume. And what we call an artifact is a piece of media. It can be a document, it can be a picture, it can be a video, that basically touches on your brand. It tells people more about you, what you've done, and it helps answer the two questions we have up here. What's something that makes you stand out, and what's something that you're strongly interested in? It helps people that come to your page learn more about you. So what we want you guys to do in your group is to turn to your neighbor or talk amongst your group about what's something that you think, as an artifact, you could add to your LinkedIn page, and what meaning and significance does it have to you? And we're going to give a few minutes to talk about this in your group, and then we'll come back. These are not
I mean, I added, I had to do a presentation during the internship.
I like
Like no pictures.
I think mine is like how about you?
Like it's not like a game like any website.
If you're showing assisting them, not recording them, JavaScript.
Well, you can just include the URL.
I can verify. I had that and be like, don't worry.
Just trying to show up.
I mean, as long as you can find that, just like my URL-based system.
Right.
Yeah, you can just include that URL. Under like irons or projects, I can ask this information outside. The only thing that I see the your artifact or something makes you kind of use your works with your
Because I just started using it, it's really impressive. Yeah, I'm gonna put it on there starting like next semester.
Oh, you haven't actually started.
We had our first meeting to show like, oh,
You're right.
Yeah, so what artifacts do you have, or anything at all? What's your major? Communication. I know nothing about communication major. Is like, is there any, like a capstone project for a class that you did at all?
Not yet.
Not yet?
I'm only a junior, so I haven't like gotten into that yet. I don't really have any.
Not even like group projects?
Oh, like websites or
Yep, websites count as too. Like if you help create a website with your group about communication, or I don't know what communication majors do, to be honest, I'm sorry. But you can include the URL for that website when you're adding your artifact, like when you put it under experience or projects that you've done, or like whatever else, general, whatever other topic description they have on LinkedIn where that could fit in. You can just describe all that and then you can link the URL for that website if you made it.
Like, what about projects like support? I help with like training staff at my job that make presentations.
If you could get the PowerPoint, like you can get the PowerPoint, you could upload that PowerPoint to there as well, and it could come under, when you say volunteer experience, and talk about, this is my job description, this is where I worked, this is everything I did, here's, like it'll just have a presentation right here, and then whoever goes to your profile can look at that and say like, yeah, you did this presentation, or this is what all you talked about during that presentation. So if there's a video of you talking, that'd be even better, but then you can also just include the PowerPoint, and that'll be a simple artifact as well, like, yeah, this is what I did. Okay, so volunteer, yeah, you can put that under the volunteering experience section of LinkedIn. So if you're like more service-based type of individual, that could be your artifact. Like, yeah, you help people, you volunteer at service shelters, animal shelters, anything in general that just basically stands out as that type of individual.
I'm just saying that I don't.
Again, you're the second education major I've ever met, so I don't know what education majors do or exactly what curriculum implies, or they have to do curriculum. I'm assuming as an education major, hopefully you had to create some sort of project or design some sort of lesson, maybe. Well, when you do, you can add that into your LinkedIn profile. So if it's a presentation or like some type of syllabus, curriculum that you have to design, you can scan that, or if it's like a virtual document, you can just add that in that section for LinkedIn. And that could be your artifact saying, yes, I made this, or I designed this type of lesson that tells the students how to do this particular thing. And that could be your artifact. And I heard you were saying that you didn't know how to add work, like password. It's quite simple. So when you go to add work, there's an ability where you can add the date. So you can change the date. So yeah, you can fill in the description, your job title, where you work, and you can just set the date for whenever you work. So then when you add to your LinkedIn, it'll show I worked at, like, say, CVS starting July 2015 to July 2016, and it'll show that, yeah, that was passed. So it is like something extra you have to do. You just have to make sure you get the date right, and then it'll show it. And then LinkedIn will put it in chronological, reverse chronological, and then they'll see it that way. myself LinkedIn on my
So that means like it's a long enough way, a lot of episodes of possibly Joji.
Yeah, this is
Yeah, journey of like
really young experience.
or whatever it is.
Work experience. Yeah, you know, the title, you know, the location, then you just say, I worked, like I said, July 5th. Yeah. And I'll just show that, yeah, that was the
I'm a very I love it. Maybe it was
Whenever I meet up to
out of the 9.
Really? I meet a lot of them. I thought about it.
So, did everybody get their artifact and find out why they got it? Oh. Well, again. Thank you. So, does anybody have an artifact that they want to share with everybody and why they do include it on their LinkedIn? Sorry.
I'll go. At my old job, they used to do things that, if a customer had, I work in retail for reference, if a customer had a really good experience with an associate or manager or whatever, they could call customer service and say, hey, Smith is great, and blah, 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 blah. And you would receive a piece of paper that they put in the break room that basically says, this customer had a really great experience and we're going to show it off. And I was lucky enough to get one of those, so I would probably put that as my professionality. That people like me.
That's always good.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have one? It could be out there, it's alright.
Alright. It's alright. So we're gonna bring it in. So
No. Somebody
yeah.
have one? I missed it, did I?
Okay.
At this point.
Sorry about that.
Good job.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it on in, and one last thing we want to do. So I'm gonna ask like 3 questions, and what we have, if you can pass it to me, we have this bag here full of beautiful surprises and gifts, and I promise you, they are really amazing. So if you raise your, like I said, raise your hand and answer this question, and whoever answers this question gets to reach in there. It's a blind bag though. All right, so first question, and I told you we'd come back later. Name at least one of the characters, one of our favorite characters from that show in the beginning. What? Wow, I was gonna say, I thought I saw your hair.
Never mind, I forgot.
Okay. Stairway to Heaven. All right.
Are you allergic to peanuts first?
Yeah.
Okay. Not to imply anything that's inside the bag, but.
All right. So next question. Name 2 major tools that Danielson went over in his LinkedIn demonstration. Right.
The alumni search and the job search.
There you go.
Ding, ding, ding.
All right. It's your Chromecast. All right. I told you.
Yeah.
Oh man. And then the last big question that we're going to ask. Can you? Oh no. Let's see. Okay, here we go. True or false? True or false? True or false? Should you or should you not? Oh my gosh, my brain just went blank.
What's the question?
Hold on.
I know.
What topic?
What topic?
Mine? Yours was a little.
Oh yeah, no, it's mine. It's mine. Okay. Sorry. True or false? Do personalized requests have a character limit? Whoa.
Oh god.
I saw your hand first.
True.
True. All right. Last big one. Get a whole bag of candy. All right. So before we finish everything up here, if you can, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. If you can tell us how we did today, we have a survey for you to fill out. You can either go to that URL, or if you have a QR scanner, or Snapchat actually works as a QR scanner. You have the QR code right there. Tell us how we did today, because we're all trying to improve. Again, thank you so much for coming out here, coming through through the whole launch series if you did, or just coming out and checking it out tonight, taking time out of your day. We really enjoy you all, and thank you so much.
Again, my name is Danielson. This is Logan.
And I'm Neil.